Welcome back, Nerglings. Today we're going to be looking at the realms of chaos, and specifically, the slaves to darkness. But before we start, be sure to like, share and subscribe so you don't miss an update. Dark and dangerous is the world, a place seething with conflict. The great races battle amongst themselves, elf and dwarf, dwarf and goblin, goblin and orc, orc and elf, man, the newest of the races, and the most warlike, exceeds all others in the savagery and length of his conflicts. Where no outside enemy exists, man finds enemies within his own kind. Empires and kingdoms rise and fall, each on a bloody tide of battle and destruction. Ancient hatreds are cherished and rehearsed, polished to a fine pitch of enmity and brought out as if proof were needed to show that war is the only course available to a true man. Old scores are settled and new causes given credence, an endless circle of war and preparation called peace. The other races are drawn into man's wars as hirelings or allies in search of advantage or simple loot. Much is laid to waste, and little is rebuilt. Fire and sword leave their black scars across the lands of the world and in the hearts of men. At the borders of the world lies a greater danger than any posed by mortal enemies, the products of another world, another universe, released upon this world by misfortune and accident in the long dead past. The creatures of chaos pour in endless torrents through a rent in the void. They gibber along the edges of the world, held back from engulfing everything only at bitter cost. Here are the chaos wastes. Here is the natural corrupted to become unnatural. Here the very earth rebels against what it has become. Trees moan in eldritch voices, and the rocks scream their hate at an uncaring sky. Here chaos gods and demons stalk the earth, destroying and perverting all in their reach. Yet this is not enough. Where once the goblins and their kin worshipped the foul gods of chaos, now man does the same. The goblins' worship was disorganized and their devotion less than total. In full sight of all that chaos can be and all that it can offer, there are those who turn their backs on sanity. Man brings all his vigour and fanaticism to the service of the lords of chaos. That service brings power, and the fanatical followers of chaos find their reward, and chaos extracts its toll. As minds twist and warp, so do bodies. Those who follow chaos are left no vestige of humanity and become unrecognisable in the service of their dark powers. Traces of humanity and decency are ruthlessly expunged from all followers of chaos. Sanity is always the first casualty. Many sink into an abyss of despair, mindlessly running and gibbering with the warped and unnameable beasts of the chaos pack. Their fate is a minor mercy, for with mindlessness comes oblivion. Some arise as dreaded and terrible chaos lords, the leaders of the chaos beastmen that slaughter and rampage across the wastes and beyond. A few are so extreme that they attract the attentions unwelcome or otherwise of the chaos powers themselves. These few are elevated and utterly changed into demons of chaos. But chaos also gnaws from within, striking at the heart of man. Throughout human lands, protected by position and title, wealth and connections, the hidden servants of chaos grow in strength and numbers. Their malign influence is felt everywhere, at the heart of all scheming and plotting, as they spread the dark works of their malicious and evil gods. They labour at the core of humanity, depraving and corrupting all they touch. they work towards the day when the world will be on its knees before their foul and pestilent gods. Only then will the servants of Chaos find their true reward. Only when the world is wholly a realm of chaos. In the incalculably distant past, the world was visited by the seafaring race known as the Old Slan. Their degree of scientific advancement caused some of the species they met with to worship them as gods, while others reviled them as demons. The Old Slan performed many scientific experiments on the world, and although the knowledge of their presence is lost in the present day, many of the races which inhabit the world found their origin in these experiments. The Old Slan travelled by means of interdimensional gateways, spanning the distances between the stars by travelling through warp space, a parallel dimension which connects all points in the material universe. One of their first tasks upon arriving on the world was to set up a pair of gateways, one at each pole of the planet, to allow them to come and go as they pleased. Warp space, however, was not an empty void, but was composed of a form of power wholly alien to the material universe. It was inhabited by entities who were equally alien. As their great ships travelled through warp space, the Old Slan protected themselves with powerful enchantments, but eventually something went dreadfully wrong. Precisely what happened can now only be guessed. Perhaps the protective enchantments broke down, or the beings that lived in warp space found some way to overcome them, or perhaps the gateways broke down under the strain of the magical forces that cycled continually through them. Whatever the cause, the gateways collapsed, both poles were destroyed, and permanent dimensional tunnels were created between the world and the void of warp space. Among the matter sucked through into the world is warpstone, a substance formed of the condensed and solidified essence of chaos. Warpstone dust rained down upon the world at the time of the catastrophe, twisting many races into strange and horrible shapes, and leading to the creation of many new species. The fallout of warpstone dust was also the catalyst that stimulated the development of the human race, giving it the versatility and lust for change that led to the present human dominance over many parts of the world. Although few humans are aware of this, and fewer still would ever admit it, chaos has left a lasting mark on the human race, and it is among humans that chaos finds its richest source of willing servants. Many beings from the void chose to send a part of their substance to the world. Some were comparatively small and weak, while others were possessed of almost incalculable power. Thus were born the gods of law and the gods of chaos and their demonic minions. The natural laws of the material universe affected their alien substance in many strange ways, giving them forms and powers which they had not possessed in their home dimension. And they found they were able to hold sway over the inhabitants of the world, and to use them for the furtherance of their own unfathomable ambitions. There was a constant struggle between the followers of law and those of chaos. The gods of law were few and comparatively weak, but their unity made up for their lack of numbers. 7,000 years later, the battle between law and chaos still rages across the face of the world, with most of its mortal inhabitants caught helplessly in the middle. The dimensional openings at the poles change constantly, shrinking with the ascension of law and growing as chaos gains the upper hand. All the while, a constant stream of raw chaos floods through from the void. For millennia, the tide of chaos has ebbed and flowed across the face of the world. The worst incident in recent history was the great incursion of chaos 200 years ago, when Norska was completely overrun and the chaos hordes ravaged the northern parts of the old world. This tide is, however, only a single aspect of chaos. It also acts in subtler ways, Human agents worm their way into positions of authority in many places and work to further the ends of their unspeakable masters. Chaos is a quick and easy road to power for those with the daring to take it. A daring that is always foolhardy, rash, and short-sighted. Chaos has many perils and a terrible price. It ensnares and seduces, flatters and enriches, mutates and corrupts, and ultimately destroys. Those who follow chaos willingly do so at the cost of their sanity, their humanity, and their souls. And in warp space, the primal void of chaos, the beings of chaos still wait and spread their taint across the Imperium and the universe. Warp creatures hover around the vulnerable psyches of humanity, seeking a path into existence through an unprotected mind. Every psychic is a potential gateway from the void of the warp, an unwitting agent of chaos to be filled with a terrible power. Only the vigilance of the Emperor's Inquisition protects humanity from the threat within itself. And, even within the Imperium, there are the foolish and weak-minded who turn to the darkness. By embracing the power and horror of warp space, all that they desire will come to pass.